On today's Leadership-adelic show, join us as we delve into an enlightening conversation with Maxime Bonnasserre, founder and Chief Harmony Officer at Stoa and a recognized coach and content creator. Maxime shares his journey of navigating through trauma, self-discovery, and transformation, ultimately finding his place of peace. Discover Maxime's unique perspective on life's unpredictability and how his career vision took an unexpected turn. Learn about his reasons for choosing to honor and accept trials, leading to personal growth and a rebuilt life. We explore how Maxime integrated lessons from his transformative journey, transitioning from striving to a peaceful existence, seeking something deeper than external rewards. His approach to coaching, guiding individuals to experience more joy and inner peace through emotional work, adds a new dimension to finding tranquility through service. Join us for this enriching and transformative conversation as we uncover life's hidden lessons with Maxime Bonnasserre. Enjoy and see you on the other side. Welcome, Maxime Bonnasserre to Leadership-adelic.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure to be here with you. I'm honored, and this is going to be fun.
Yeah, no, and right before the show, we were catching up, and you were telling me you're having a good week with some vacations coming up. So,
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Relax. We're gonna go without the kids.
Ah,
Yeah, reset, reboot.
are you go? Oh, you mentioned California. Going
Yeah.
any place exciting in California?
Well, the purpose of the trip is to go to the Grand Canyon. We're gonna go up and hike
Ooh,
there. So we're
oh
gonna spend
wow,
a few days in LA and then head out to the canyon.
that's awesome. Is that your first time there?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
wow.
First, have you ever been?
I was like 16 maybe or
Yeah.
17. So it's a long time ago. I didn't hike like at the bottom of the canyon. My father-in-law did, and he couldn't
Hmm.
stop talking about it. Apparently you can get like donkeys there or like horses. I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't tried that either. But
Well,
that sounds awesome.
it's gonna be great. I'll tell you
Um,
much more when I come
yeah.
back.
Yeah, good. So another thing we were talking about, I like, all those little things,
Hmm.
before we get to like the deep stuff. We
Yeah.
were like looking at our teacups, and you told me your teacup, like for people watching, we each have very artistic, organic
Yeah.
teacups. And so I'd love to learn the story of your teacup.
It's a good one. I spotted this one on my way to record a podcast, and I wanted to buy it for my spouse. So I figured, oh, on my way back, I'll just stop and buy it. But I missed the boat. The shop was closed, and I couldn't go. So the next weekend, we happened to pass in the area. So I brought her.
Yeah.
And I said, "Here's the cup I would like to buy for you and for Easter." And she said, "You know what? It's beautiful, but I would rather have another one." So she picked the other one, but this one was so compelling to me that I bought it for myself. Now, here's the thing. I get home a few days later, I look under the cup, and the name of the artist is Estelle. My grandmother's name was Stella, like a star in Italian.
Yeah.
They used to call her Estelle as a
Mm.
nickname. So now I'm drinking my tea and I'm thinking of my grandma, and she's like present, yeah, I was guided to buy that cup after all.
Oh, there you go. I love it. Honoring, connected with the
Yeah,
cup before, like through the artist's work back to your grandma. That's wonderful.
indeed.
And,
Yeah.
grandparents are such huge influences in many people's lives.
Mm.
They play such an important role. Um, and I love how you weave all that in with the love for your wife, the love for,
Yes.
and we'll talk more about love
All
because
right,
I
sure.
like how you summed up your journey as a journey from love to love. And and there's love for people who are not watching, we're listening. There's this painting. I'm assuming it's from your daughter
Yeah,
behind you that says
yeah,
love,
indeed. Yeah.
with beautiful pink or red background and a
Indeed.
handprint and
Yeah.
many
It's all about
hearts.
love. I
It's
truly
all
believe
about
that.
love, yeah. Um, and that's one thing, we met through I would say the social media mycelium, and I spotted some of your videos, and I don't remember if it was on YouTube or LinkedIn, but I spotted the videos, and I could feel that love radiating. I loved really appreciated your composure and your energy on the videos. And then one thing that was really special that you did is you did it both in French and in English as well, which was unusual. And I was really never tempted to ever do, even though I could. And I was like, wow, my hat to him for doing that. So like, I'm curious, what prompted you to like come up with that format and show yourself this way, and also do it in two languages?
Yeah. Well, thank you, first of all, for your lovely comment. Um, the yearning for the book, doing it in both languages, just came out of my love of French, and I was raised up in a in a house that was French speaking mostly.
Yeah.
There was some English speaking in my house as well, because my on my mother's side there's Irish roots. So both languages were there, but French was much more present. And as I grew up, I kind of went into the English language much more personally, for work as well. And I didn't want to lose touch with the heritage and the language. And so I decided to force myself to do it in both languages, even though it's easier most of the time to do it in English. It comes out more naturally in English, but I really want to force myself to do it in French as well.
Yeah. What type of I mean, I commend that. That's wonderful. And I can relate to that. It's easier to doing it in English.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Even though I grew up in France, what type of feedback have you received from doing it in both languages?
Depending on who I'm reaching, right? I think that's the beauty of
Yeah.
tackling both languages, that the words are different, the expressions are different, the energy might be different too. So I think people connect whomever they are and what languages they speak for that reason.
Yeah. And you're in Montreal, right?
Yes, I am indeed.
Yeah, so yeah, it's you do see a lot of things in English and French there, um, but I'm hoping a lot of people are appreciating that, because you don't see, at least I don't see that much of that type of content you're putting out in French. Maybe there is, or maybe I'm not looking for it.
Well, you know what? I was under the same impression myself, because maybe we're such immersed into the English side
Yeah,
that we don't see what's happening on the French side. Uh, Maybe there's more in France than here
yeah,
in Quebec.
yeah.
Mm, But
So before
yeah.
before we dive deep in your background, your journey, your
Mm.
spiritual work, and your current projects, actually, well, let's dive into what do you do here? What, like, how do you help people? How do you show up? What is your work, and who are you? All that briefly, because we're gonna dive deeper, and
Yeah.
there's
Okay.
gonna be an intro before all this, but I want to hear it in your own words.
Thank you. That, that was a difficult one for me to express. For such a long time, I kept on changing the words and how wanted it to come out. But in essence, I'm really here to be inspiring in my my own idiosyncratic ways, and to guide people in their own spiritual journey, their self growth. Call it whatever you want. In essence, that's it.
Yeah.
I really want to help people free themselves from themselves, because I believe we are our own worst enemy. I know I've been my own. So
Well,
in
that's a
essence, that's
good
it.
that's a good segue, and that's a beautiful, beautiful mission, really important. And I think some people listening to that would be like, "Well, what makes him so good at doing that? What gives him the, like? Why would I go talk to Maxime? Like,
Yeah.
and like, does he even understand what I'm going through?" And I think for that, it's worth going to your journey, your own journey, and what you've gone through. And I'm just wondering, like how far back do you want to go? Because when you were sharing that with me, I was like, wow, like there's a lot of lessons that started early on in your life, that were like important lessons that really shaped your abilities to be able to help others.
Wow. Yeah. And we could go deep and we can go in so many directions, right, with this.
Yeah, I like the direction you took in the form you said, because there's important events,
Yes.
and I think it's in the society today. It's important for people to understand each other's humanity and journeys, and a lot of people, like if they're watching, they might be like, "Oh, here's two white guys who look privileged, who've always eaten from a silver spoon." And who might not really understand what challenges and trauma and that journey looks like. And so I think part of the podcast is showing it's like, no, there's depth to all our journeys. We all have our trauma, and so I'd love
Oh,
to
you
hear a
just gave
little
me
bit.
chills with that. Yeah, and when I have chills, there's a truth speaking. So, oh boy, indeed, there's common humanity in everything we're going through, I believe.
Yeah,
Whatever where we're from and racial differences or sexual differences and whatnot. I think the seed of where our traumas and conditionings and patterns are coming from are very similar. It's always an inside job, right?
yeah,
And mine, like you said, began very young age. I'm not special in any way, right? I mean, we all go through our own journey,
yeah,
and some have gone through stuff that are, I guess we could qualify, much worse than me. But that's my journey. So
yeah,
mine started with a very dysfunctional family. You know, well, parents who gets divorced, and then the fight, truly the fight in court for many years around
yeah,
that, and being stuck between a rock and a hard place. Dysfunctional families and their own relationships and how they interact with each other. Then my own difficulties, growing up and being this kid who, yeah, goes through psychological abuse, physical abuse,
yeah.
that leaves imprints on you, I guess we can say,
Yeah.
right?
Was there bullying in there as well? Like when we're talking about growing up and physical abuse, like and I was bullied, when I was a kid. So I was curious if that was
Yeah,
also part of that.
yeah, for sure. Bullying was part of it.
Yeah.
Mainly the beat ups from the parents,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
not listening or rebelling.
yeah.
My mom was also going through her own journey, suffering from a little bit of psychological difficulties. I guess we can put it this way. Um, you know,
Yeah.
I don't want to go
No, you don't have to go into
right
everything,
there.
but
Yeah.
I think that's those are important things to just realize and to have that perspective now of even realizing that your mom was going through her own things, that
Yeah.
the parents go through their own things,
Yeah.
and you touched on that previously. There's also the generational trauma as well, especially if there's
My family history and
immigration
all
and
that.
having to leave. Yeah,
There's, obviously, as you may imagine, there's stuff in there as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
And you said it well. Our own parents, they have their own journey. So
yeah,
who are we to blame them or point the finger or,
yeah.
yeah, rub it in their face, so to speak?
I think it's part of growing up too, is
Yeah.
understanding that they had their own journeys. I think as children, you tend to put your parents on pedestals and have really high expectations because they're your parents, and as you get older, you realize, oh well, they were humans like me with their faults, and they made mistakes, and they did the best they could with the tools they had.
Absolutely. My
Uh,
dad always told me there's no book to raise a kid. Yeah, indeed.
uh, I
There's
don't
a lot
know.
of trial and error,
There's plenty of people who've tried to
perhaps.
write books.
Also,
I think especially in the US with all the self-help books, there's plenty of that. But ultimately, there's really no book, as you know, your dad was saying, to raise a kid. It's a hard job, and you don't get to do it too many times too in your lifetime. I mean, even if you have a lot of kids, it's
mm,
still, very few kids in the environment, and so what are you exposed to? Well, your own growth.
so true. There's such a blessing for that, and the ray of joy that they bring, for
Yeah.
sure. But then also the opportunities that they give us to reflect what's hiding inside that needs some
Yeah.
healing and transformation. We're exposed to that times a thousand with kids.
Yeah. So you had this difficult youth, and you entered the workplace.
Yes.
Um, how did that play out? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
that, yeah,
My
because you're built on that, basically, you
goodness.
have
Yeah, we
challenges,
are.
and uh, where did you go from there?
Mm. I was very biased, as a typical kid that gets to be, yes, bring up in a difficult, family dynamic, but also very privileged one. My
Yeah.
family was in business for 45 years, a very successful business, millionaires. And I had this very, I was about to say weird. I don't know if it's weird or natural when you're unconscious of it, conception that my life path in my career, work wise, was pretty linear. I mean, I was going to get into the workforce, take over the family business, and run my life as a pretty successful entrepreneur and have all these material belongings and pretty much replicate what I've always seen from my granddad.
Yeah.
That was my vision of how my career was going to evolve, and it screwed me up big time. Because I was on this treadmill of always trying to grab that or go for this. I never got to take over the family business. It went bankrupt, which is interesting because I went bankrupt later in my life. But then I was still on that, yeah, treadmill of trying to replicate exactly the same thing. And so I became a job hopper, was always going for the salaries and the positions and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How, were you considering yourself spiritual at the time? It doesn't sound like you're. I
Not at
mean,
all.
we're all spiritual beings, but
Yes.
like, were you connected with that spiritual side at all? It doesn't sound like
I wasn't. No, you're right.
that.
There was no clue of awakening at that point. I was just rolling along the, how can we call it? Just worldly life. I think maybe this is how we can
Yeah.
call it.
Yeah. And so when did it come to a head?
Mm. Well, it is my belief or observation that there's two pathways where
Yeah.
one breaks out of this mold. Mm. It's either by the grace of God or through enough suffering that you say, okay, enough is enough. I gotta
Yeah.
do something here. And mine was the latter. Yeah. After multiple failed relationships, after multiple failed attempts at trying to create this working life for myself and keep on going back to the beginning and going after it again and again and over again. At one point, I was enough. And was tired of being tired. I was suffering, and yeah, I wanted to transform that. I wanted to grow out of it.
Yeah. Why do you think? I mean, I'm assuming you've seen other people going through that. Like I've had many other guests on the podcast going through similar experiences, and as you were saying at the beginning, you're not special, but the fact that you went through those experiences makes you kind of educated in those journeys to help others. Why do you think we keep getting trapped in those patterns?
Mm. No, we're not conscious enough. Simply, I think, we're not conscious enough, and we're kind of addicted to it.
Yeah.
Form of addiction, I believe. I know that's what I've been going through. I know it viscerally, because we're not seeing things clearly. We're going after those hedonistic pleasure of those external validations because that's what brings us alive inside.
Yeah.
There's addiction roots in this that are very clear.
Yeah. And so you,
Does that resonate? Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. No, it resonates with me and with the other guests I've had on the show. Is um, yeah, one guest I had yesterday was talking about the fact that we're living in the darkness, but we have those synthetic lights that make it seem like we're not in the darkness, but we're shrouded in fake light, and we move forward this way, thinking that's the way. And it's challenging, and you see people just going through that over and over again. But everybody's at different points in their journey too, and you know, like the question to you would be like, you know, how could you have had that enlightenment sooner without the struggle, or do you feel like you needed the struggle to get there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know, and I don't bother asking
Yeah.
because it is what it is, and I've grown enough in the process to honor and respect my own path and
Yeah.
every step that it includes, even now. Yeah, so I truly, I'm grateful basically for all of those obstacles and sufferings because they're my diamond. They were my
Yeah.
diamond off, and until I didn't bother to shine them and buff them and work with them,
Yeah.
they were still the ignition for it all.
Yeah. I love that, honoring the struggles and accepting them. That's an
Yeah.
important part of the journey, and not trying to erase them either.
And when it seems like when you're on this journey, it always starts intellectually, right? We try to rationalize and understand and make sense of things. That's how we're wired. So
Yeah.
it seems. At the beginning, I didn't understand that. You know, when I was reading Tolle and he said, I'm paraphrasing, but accept everything that comes your way as if you have chosen it.
Hmm.
What is he talking about? I didn't choose this. I don't want this step. But indeed, I had chosen it. And we can go metaphysical on this one or
Yeah.
very practical, you know, from life to life and soul journeys, or even through my own doings in this life. I was manufacturing the life I was living for myself. You know, I was planting seed of karma as I was reacting bad stuff
Yeah. Yeah.
out. You know?
You're probably hurting people around you in the process as well. I'm assuming
Absolutely.
it's like
For
usually
sure.
uh, that
I
happens in
went
those.
through a divorce.
Yeah.
You don't get married because you intend to get divorced, right? But it became clear to me that this was not a good relationship to be in. And on hindsight, yeah, hindsight,
Yeah.
for sure, I did hurt my first wife in so
Yeah.
many ways, and I'm sorry for this, but it was also part of the journey for
Yeah.
both of us.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's yeah. I went through a divorce as well, and I met my current wife after the divorce, and we're married now. And but like we couldn't have met each other earlier in life because we were different people, and so we
Beautiful.
met each other at the right time. And from your story is your whole experience, your first marriage, and everything shaped you to be the person you were when you met your wife.
Mm, so true. I can so much resonate with that. Yeah, that touches that special place in my heart.
Yeah.
I was talking with a friend last week on this very specific topic of being given or receiving what you need exactly when you're ready for it.
Yeah.
And if it's not that, it seems like it's us blocking those experiences or people coming our way because we're not open enough, right?
I mean, that's a really important message because in the current society, we want everything now, now, now. So like if you want the enlightenment now, I need to get enlightened. I'm
Yeah.
20. I just started working. I'm a little challenged with my workplace. I need to be enlightened right now. I'm like, it's going to take a while. I mean, the
Yeah.
hardships are part of the journey, and the pain is there, and you learn from it.
Yeah. And it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be a little
Yeah,
painful this year.
yeah,
It's not going to be a breeze.
yeah.
We're not sidestepping lizards here. We're fighting dragons sometimes, so it feels right.
I like that, sidestepping lizards. So when you came to that point, and you realize you wanted to turn things around, what are some of those tools that were really useful in your journey that could help others, um, who are looking for tools?
It's a beautiful question. It was an evolution for me, and I can see the beauty in all of the steps, but as everything, right? It's you're peeling the onion
Yeah.
sometimes. So it was an evolution and a shift in consciousness, and it started very pragmatically for me. Science-based study of psychological stuff and certifications and psychologists that could help me in all that realm. And you're reading hundreds of books on self-growth and whatnot, and they were helpful. And at a certain point, I said, well, I'm ready for something new. So I got into Stoicism. What a beautiful teacher, great mentor. I worked for a couple of years with him, a Stoic author and psychologist. And I outgrew that. It came to a point where I got the beauty out of the text and the study and the teachings from my mentor.
Yeah.
But I was ready for something deeper. There was always this longing within to go at the root and go deeper. And that's when spirituality came into the picture.
And so as you were going through those different phases,
Yes.
um, how, like, were there like nuggets in there that you picked up that you carried forward with you, and like are there
Yeah.
some you can share?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I mean, that would be so much.
Just
But I'm thinking about the last conversation Donald and I had, my Stoic coach. Donald is the pendant of Ryan Holiday, Donald Robertson. I highly encourage everyone to read his stuff and follow him. He's a great Stoic man. I think we were having our last session because he was stopping his practice. He was too busy with his books and his speaking engagements. And he said, "How can you sum up our work together?" And Donald really helped me with my ruminative mind. You know, that was very strong for me. There's something in there that was always talking. And that was one of the biggest takeaways and tools that I've picked up from Stoicism, you know, to take a step back and just pause before reacting. Okay, I'll use Viktor Frankl to put this in an analogy that makes sense. Not an analogy, but here's a man that went through horrible things, you know, the Holocaust, and was a prisoner in a camp and whatnot. There is strong Stoicism roots in his teachings, in my perspective, when he talks about stimulus and response. Things happen in our life, right? Whether it's situation or people, there's a stimulus, something is happening. And we're going to have a response that's inevitable. But there's a gap in between. Might be small, might be big, but there's a gap. And however we choose to be in that gap will dictate the response.
Yeah.
And that's what I got the most from, I'd say, all of the psychology books and the certifications in my work with Donald. This framework of really pausing and choosing our response to any events, obstacles, difficulties in my life, in our lives.
Yeah. Gives you control.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. It gives you control.
Because it's almost like regaining control.
Self-control. Yeah.
Uh, because a lot of time people feel more like victims of or a situation that can
Oh,
happen, and
yeah.
with that gap, it's like, you know, there's a gap here you can work with, and you can make decisions, and you do have options, and
So true. Yeah, we can be either be a victim in life or a creator. It's either or.
yeah, yeah,
My friend David Emerald taught me that. He wrote this great book, the Empowerment Dynamic. TED. He lives in Seattle, actually. Maybe I should connect you guys.
there you go. Yeah, it'd be great. Have him on the show.
Yeah, that's the whole premise of his work. He's a very beautiful man, a deep spiritual man, and that's his story in the book, in a form of a story, literally. But that's the shift he made, and that's the shift he's inviting all of us to do, from the creator standpoint or mindset to a victim, beg your pardon, mindset or
Yeah,
stance to a creator one, where you can choose to, yeah, be who you truly are, and
yeah.
which is love.
and and I don't think being a creator doesn't mean you haven't suffered, or you haven't been uh, impacted by other people's wrongdoing, and that they, you know, hasn't been like terrible acts that might have been committed against you. I think it's, you know, regaining control of the narrative and your story, and how you want to move forward, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's not easy. It takes a lot of resilience, a lot of in-depth exploration.
yeah, for
But we're
sure,
capable of it.
for sure. So then, at that time, you were working with your teacher, and then you said, then you encountered spirituality, or,
Mm,
you know, I'm paraphrasing that, but like,
yeah.
how did that first meeting go?
You bring me back. You're bringing me back. What's the kernel of this? There's a specific moment that I recall.
Hmm.
It was already brewing within me because I could feel this, longing for something else, and was already very curious and reading a lot of spiritual books and
Yeah.
trying a lot of things in the spiritual spectrum, if we can call it like that.
Yeah, I called it other other things before I was actually spiritual. I was like, "Oh, what's all that spiritual BS?" That's what I called it. And now I'm like, oh my God, it's real.
Yeah, yeah. But there's an encounter with a man that really, yeah, invited me to take a seat in my own spirituality and the path going forward. Um, he's my master. He's my teacher, Alan
Yeah.
Cohen, great friend of Ram Dass. I met with him through a coaching group session. I remember after this setting, I didn't have the chance to interact with him at that point. But there was so much peace and love emanating from him. It was strong to me. It was so compelling that I wanted to be close to him in some way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like the guru, master, not guru and mentee, or however we call it, relationship. I don't know. I don't have a guru. I've never been to
Yeah.
India, but I can probably feel the same thing. And that was the start. That was the start for me of peeling the onion to its core.
Yeah. You just took me back to actually this morning I was listening to Krishna Das, and he's got on Spotify, there's a great book he has that's freely available to all called The Pilgrims of the Heart. And he recounts his journey meeting Ram Dass for the first time and then going to India with Ram Dass to meet Maharaji.
Yeah.
And the way he described his first encounter was like just the love that was emanating from
Yeah. Oh, it's
um,
beautiful.
uh, the guru, and how he was drawn to that, just like you were,
Yeah.
just like you were explaining, um, and that love, you talk about journey from love to love when you were describing your own personal journey, but that's a big deal, and it's hard to really understand. I think if how does that love feel different from any other loves you felt? Like, can you even describe it?
No.
It's sometimes I think with psychedelic experiences you can really get into a state where, like, oh my God, that really transcends me and I really
Yeah.
understand the
Oh,
full spectrum of love.
ah.
um
So I think this is the perfect setting to share this story. But
yeah,
last week, before the show, we were talking about it.
yeah,
You asked me, how are you coming into the show? And I said, well, since last week, there was something that happened that really brought another layer of peace and love within. And for me, lately, there's been, yeah, life gets busy sometimes, and especially the family. And
yeah,
I got to sit down, when the day was winding down and kids were to sleep, and I could feel this. I don't know if I can render justice to the feeling, but sometimes I caught myself saying, you know, God or universe, life, divine, whatever you want to call it. Uh, I feel distant from you. I haven't connected with you, so it seems today, as much. And one experiences after the other brought me closer and closer and closer, I think, last week, until this culminant point where I had a beautiful conversation with a dear friend of mine, and he went really deep and opened up, and he's going through his own stuff. Lost his wife to cancer and whatnot. Then he started to talk about his own lessons, and he said one phrase: about God, and I just started weeping like a baby because I could feel so much love inside. Like you said, it was so transcendent. I couldn't control myself. It was too much. Yeah, so I guess that's as close as I can get to
Yeah.
framing yeah, the love you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, and it's a great way to frame it. I mean, it's like if you hear others who've experienced that describing it, they use different words, but they'll be able to somehow capture that energy. Um, and I mean, it sounded
Yeah,
like it was a little bit of a release too for you, um,
yeah,
as
indeed.
well. Um, Especially since, you know, as you said, we get busy. Well, we live in a society. We live in a society that has a rhythm, that has rules, that, you know, has a way about it, and we're not hermits on top of
Yeah,
a mountain. So, you know, and if you have a family,
yeah,
you have children that are part of the society, and, you know,
yeah.
unless you're homeschooling them, they have to go to a school that has its own rhythm. um, so you can't completely ignore that rhythm, but at the same time it can be intense, because I don't know if it was necessarily it's the best rhythm for human. I mean, I
Mm,
know it's not.
yeah.
um,
That's so beautiful what you just said because it, we don't, like you said, we don't need to be hermits, hiding in the mountains to grow ourselves. It appears to me now that the best place to do it is right here in the midst of all of our activities and daily living and commuting with other people.
yeah.
It's much more easier to get your crap coming up, your stuff coming up when you're interacting in this setting. What a beautiful opportunity after all to heal and grow and transform what needs to be transformed to free yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I
All
mean,
right,
we're,
it's
we're
the world
social
is not
animals.
it.
Yeah. I mean, we are social animals. We need that human connections, and I think every once in a while, I mean, there was that great movie. I think it was called Get Into the Wild, where there's this young man who wants to go to Alaska
Okay.
and to be by himself in Alaska, and so the whole movie follows him on that journey of him
Yeah,
going to Alaska to just be by himself and being in the wild, because he believes that's where he'll find peace.
that's wild.
um and they found his journal years later, and the movie is based on his journal.
Wow. Okay.
But the main lesson of the movie is that really where he felt when he felt the most alive was in his journey, when he was encountering all those people,
Mm,
and uh, just seeing the diversity, exchanging their stories and his story. And then when he found himself finally in the wild, I'm going to spoil it for everyone, so just, you know, people skip that if you haven't seen the movie. Um, he gets stuck there. He ends up eating bad berries, and they think that's what killed him. And then
mm,
uh, the river that he crossed to make it where he went was like, you know, 10 times the size when he was getting sick, so he couldn't actually head back. Terrible story. But he kept on writing in his journal before he
that's
died, of course.
precious.
And so they were able to pull that together. But that, you know, there's that, and then you also reminded me of the autobiography of a yogi,
Mm.
where, you know, for he goes and travels to the mountains in order, you know, and then he realizes, hey, my guru was right down the street. Um,
Yeah,
but
indeed.
you need those journeys. You need those journeys. You need to go to the mountain. You need to go to mountain to realize, oh, it was here all along. You have to
Mm.
experience it.
Yeah.
So,
That's
yeah,
so beautiful. It reminds me of so many things. David Brooks, the columnist and writer, wrote about this in his own way, but the analogy that he used was brilliant for me. He talks about the second mountain where you climb your first peak, and at the top of that peak, you realize, well, that's not it. There's more to it, and then you got to go down through the valleys and
yeah,
going down before going up again. And it's on that second peak that you find something much more richer, much more peaceful, joyful, lovable.
yeah. I love
Yeah.
that second mountain. That's great. And the valleys, and that's a beautiful analogy. It's funny. I've been using the second mountain and the analogy for a different thing, which is the integration time after a psychedelic experience.
Interesting.
Because a lot of time, the challenge with really intense experiences, whether it's a psychedelic experience or like a near death experience, or even the experience you had with your friend last week where he shared some words about God and the love, and those experiences are so intense that you forget sometimes to realize you have to integrate that lesson in your life,
Mm.
and that is another mountain in of itself.
Mm.
um, and so while the experience itself provides some teaching,
Yes.
integrating the teachings uh, is a lot of work, and it's not always easy, especially if you're trying to change how your life is
Yeah.
and shape it differently, which you clearly did in your journey. You had very intentional approaches to how you went about it.
That's beautiful. That's such an important reminder for everyone on the journey too, right? Because like you said at the very beginning, we oftentimes try to rush through it and we want it now.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not how it's meant to sink in.
We're wired more and more to want it now. Oh, it's true. It's like, and now with AI, it's like I can have it even faster.
Yeah.
Um, though, I hope that AI can help free up some time, um, so we can do maybe something slower.
Mm.
um, but that's how you use it, right? It's like if you try to use it to stuff more in your busy day. um, yeah,
And it's when we slow down, typically that things, the major shifts happen.
yeah. So back to your spirituality. I mean, we're still in this spiritual discussion. um, what
But
are
actually,
go ahead.
I'll go a little bit further on that one because
Yeah,
it's so important, I think. I'll link it to where I think you wanted to go. We'll see. But I remember at one point, I think I had to learn to slow down, and I wasn't conscious yet of that shift that needed to happen.
yeah,
And life took care of that for me. I remember being in California for a business trip, and I had gone for almost 2 weeks. It was a very intense one in terms of engagements. And I was still back then in the mood of, self-actualizing and working out and doing all of my practices and very rigorous and self-disciplined, a little bit too much, quite frankly. And I had this breakdown. They thought I was having a heart attack at one point in a meeting with CEOs, and we're 10 around the table. I'm, I'm shutting down, pain in my left arm, in my heart,
oh wow,
and then couldn't speak anymore, couldn't walk. I was sure I was having a heart attack, but it was my body actually teaching me the lesson that I was not conscious enough to welcome in. And yeah, I think recognizing that it's not about rushing through the process,
yeah,
welcoming every step of it, being patient, internalizing it, like you were talking about.
Yeah.
That's the crux of it.
I love this. This is a word you said, which is like maybe you were doing too much. With
Yes,
your
cut up into
routine
so
and
much.
everything. How when when do you know it's too much? I mean, it's a hard question to answer, but it's like that I see it all the time.
Mm,
People adding layers upon layers of improvements.
yes.
If you're into biohacking, people will add layers and layers of hacks to improve yourself beyond human potential. I'm like, well, first
Yeah.
try to reach your human potential. Uh, but how do you guide people that or help people that are adding too much to their plate? And what is your approach? Like if somebody is looking for help and they come to you, like how would you approach that?
Mm, that's a beautiful one. There's there needs to be a shift in what you truly want. It seems trivial, but if if you are hoping to always excel and outperform and be in this rabbit hole of doing and doing and doing and doing to reach your full potential, or you're like the athlete who wants to be the best in its sports. You're gonna push hard, and you're gonna go through all the steps and the pain to get there. And I understand that, but I think even athletes have a deeper meaning to it all that doesn't have to do with the trophy or the medal or the win. And so I think it's about changing the perspective for yourself in terms of what you truly want.
Yeah.
And what happened for me was, well, yeah, I don't want to, be this super executive who's top shape and also very highly spiritual and earning a lot of money and doing all that. And that wasn't important anymore. All I wanted was peace. That was this recognition or longing for something deeper that is not worldly. I'm coming back to this word, but yeah.
Yeah. Do you think some of those things are mutually exclusive, or after now having been more on your spiritual journey, um, you're kind of looking back at those situations where, okay, I'm a different person now. Um, I'm more equipped to maybe approach some of the situations like,
Yeah.
like corporate intensity, or are they mutually exclusive?
I don't think there are. I can only speak for me. They're not important anymore,
Yeah.
but I don't think they are mutually exclusive. It is my recognition, though, that one will lead you to the other potentially in a much more ease or easy. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
The
ease.
spirituality will lead you to the success in whatever shape or form you might frame it for yourself in a much more easier way,
Yeah.
much more flowing,
Yeah. No, I
if it
think
does.
the gap you mentioned too is a very useful tool, working with that gap, uh,
Yeah.
especially in corporate settings. And setting your boundaries is another important one, I believe, is and then knowing when to take care of yourself, which all these are lessons that you touched on, um, in the journey. I think are great tools And again, in corporate, there's huge currents, there's huge, undertows and strong waves, and it's like you need your surfboard, and you need to be good at surfing, otherwise you're going to get caught in those currents. And so yeah.
It seems like the currents are the strongest at the beginning. Once you pass them, it's much more easier.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're really good at swimming in the currents, but eventually I think you get tired,
Yeah.
and you have a heart attack, or it's like your person can only take so much intensity. And I've talked to a lot of others on the show, athletes, people who
Yeah.
used to be athletes that really push themselves to be at their top, and they get to the top and they're also like, now what is
Yeah.
life like? I've pushed myself really hard, and like, where do I go from here?
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I think when we get to a recognition that there's no difference between business or any endeavor that we go after and life, it's all life in the background.
Yeah.
That changes our approach to it all. As a matter of fact, I can recall maybe some certain situations as an executive where they were highly spiritual after all. Even in that setting, I was given so many opportunities to grow spiritually. If we welcome it from those lens, it's another ballpark, in my opinion.
Yeah. You don't think about the workplace though as conductive for that, but it is, and it can be.
So much.
And it
I
goes
remember
back yeah.
something, but
I think it goes back to it's how you react to it, and the creator versus the victim. Um, it's easy to become a victim of your environment. It's very easy,
yeah, very.
especially with strong environments that are meant to be systems. And corporations are meant to be systems. They're meant to be systems that scale up so that you can do more with the same quality, and put out services of product or products, and scale that ability. So it's a system. And so the design of a system is to, to be a current, for each of the parts in the system, so they behave a certain way or as best as they can. And so how do you work within a system, and then retain your own creator aspect versus being just a victim.
Yeah. Oh
Like
my
flowing
gosh.
with
Yeah.
it. Um,
Perhaps the misconception we have about work is we go at it to get something.
yeah,
And work is about serving, not about getting. And I know that has been a true um, peaceful recognition for me. What a growing family. I might have to step into corporate world a little bit more
yeah,
going forward, but that's okay because of how I approach it now.
yeah,
In this essence,
yeah, yeah,
and if we could all go at work with the intention of serving our clients, our company, our peers, whomever we interact with, um, and the victim mindset that you're talking about wouldn't be as much present, because if
yeah.
you're serving, you got to be a creator.
I love that. Serving is a very strong theme. When did that? When did serving enter your life? When did you have that realization that you wanted to be of service?
Mm. It came towards the and in my sales career. I was coaching a lot, and it was obvious that I wasn't coaching sales per se, but the human being behind the role. And I was in the midst of my own path, and I was growing myself and making all of the new connections, and yeah, it became very apparent that the second mountain was about serving,
Yeah.
with my gifts and what I had to offer, and that was it.
Yeah. So, today, how do you serve people?
Thank you for that beautiful question. Simple. It's simple, yet not easy work, one would say, potentially. I was chatting with my coach, Alan, lately, and we were laughing about this because I was like, Alan, I'm a very simple guy when it comes to being yes, a person, but also a coach. I'm not the one who gives a bunch of techniques, and I don't, enter into quantum physics and the neuroscience and whatnot. I just work at the root. You have emotions and thoughts that are ruining your life because of past experiences and patterns and traumas. And if we could just learn to work with that, to deepen our consciousness, our spirituality, so that we feel more joy and happiness and inner peace. I mean, that's it. And that's how I try to help people and the clients I work with. And it's very, very simple, yet a very in-depth exploration.
What did he answer to that? What was his answer?
He started laughing.
Yeah. Well, it's I can totally relate to what you just said, because
I mean,
there's a lot of coaches, really good coaches out there that have a lot of certifications, that have a lot of techniques to share. They're really good at dropping quotes and names, and it's really impressive. Like, it's
yes.
intimidating.
Yeah.
And they're very helpful, and they do great work. And but then, there's many ways to help with simple approaches, with just a few things, just a few tricks. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah.
Breath work, like breath work is a good example. I was talking about it with another guest, Stephen Gray, who wrote How Psychedelics Can he co-wrote How Psychedelics Can Change the World.
Yeah.
And somehow we were talking about breath work, but the thing is, there's a lot of complex breath work you can do. And I'm going to drop some names here again, but like, if you read Stan Groff, he'll talk about all the breath work he's done and all the different techniques that can get you in an entheogenic state.
Okay.
But then the simple thing is, you can just feel your breath. Just be aware of it. Just feel it move through your system. And just that.
Yeah.
You don't need any fancy techniques, but like feeling it, on the hair inside your nose.
Yeah. You
Um,
pass it on 101.
it's like you start there, visualizing it. Next step, it's like, oh, how is that? Can you visualize where the energy, where the
Mm,
center of your breath is as it
yeah.
moves through your body? And so, all those things, like, you don't have to go really advanced, you don't have to go really complicated. And a lot of times, to help people are so far gone that sometimes the simple things are enough to just, really start that shift.
I truly believe so. I'm fortunate to have this gift of listening very well with my heart, and people are compelled to open up and share, and then it's a matter of asking maybe just a couple of good questions, and and also sometimes inspiring or guiding. And I don't have all the answers, but
Yeah.
I certainly know that the people I work with, they do. They have it in them. So if I can just point them in the right direction
Yeah.
for them, that's all it takes.
Yeah. Well, and listening by itself is such an important tool. Listening and providing that human connection, because feeling listened is healing.
It is.
I
I
mean,
agree with you completely.
it's like couple therapy 101, but it's like I remember reading Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, which
Yes.
I thought was a great book, but I read it after my first divorce. And maybe if I'd read it before, I would have understood more.
Yeah.
Uh, but it reiterates the stuff you learn over time. But that sometimes your spouse just wants to be listened. He can, and
Mm.
she doesn't want you to fix problems for her. That just shows just that is healing. Just like, oh my God, there's somebody else that I'm married to, and they're just listening
Yes.
to me. That
Mm.
active listening.
Yeah. 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 That's compassion right there, right? When we're able to do that.
Yeah.
Yes, we can feel empathy for whatever is being shared and have empathy, but compassion is actionable, and just listening actively with an open heart is very compassionate, and it's
Yeah.
healing.
Uh, why? I was going to say, why do you think it's so hard for us to listen nowadays?
And there's multiple answers to this one, I suppose, but we're so busy trying to fit into molds, trying to just listen in a certain way because that's what we're supposed to do. We're distracted and busy all the time.
Yeah.
We lost touch with ourselves. We don't want to have, I guess that's it. We can barely listen to ourselves. So how can we listen to others?
Yeah. Are there with your daughter, are there like little things you're doing together to kind of slow things down and really enjoy the moment? I'm assuming there's
Yeah,
probably is a handful.
yeah. The most flagrant one, if that's the right word, probably has to do with the consumption of TV and phone and whatnot. And this is almost absent from our house.
Yeah.
And we were having dinner with our neighbors the other day, and they were laughing because our little one goes there sometimes, to see them and the cats. And then he picked up a remote from a PlayStation, and he was like, "What's that?" And we're laughing because for them, uh, you should know what this is. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
remote control from a game console. That's what kids do, right?
Yeah.
But ours didn't have a clue what that was, and this is kind of funny, but also okay. They're going to be exposed to it, and we don't want to prevent that from happening because that's the day and age we live in. But
Yeah.
in due time, and so there's better ways to create connection uh, than than
Yeah.
than for instance. It's just an example, but
I love it.
being together, talking, doing
Yeah.
things, activities.
Yeah. No, it's hard as a parent, right? Because again, there's the current from the world, and but the minds of children are so easily um, imprinted by experiences that it's kind of nice to be able to delay some of these
Indeed.
when they're maybe a little more mature or ready for them. Like cell phones, for example, is one where I wish I could have delayed it a little bit more for my kids,
Mm.
and but it is what it is. At the same time, we live in this society, and while their minds get imprinted, they're also resilient. uh, so that's a
Beautiful.
balance.
And they picked that up probably from the parents. So hats off to you.
Yeah.
The
Well, we'll
apple
see.
doesn't fall away from the tree, as they say.
We'll see. I use my phone quite a lot. So it goes in both the good and bad, I think. Um,
But they also have their own journeys, right?
they do. They
I
do.
find a lot of relief in that too.
Yeah.
And knowing that they have their own journeys and they will have to go through whatever is will be in front of them is okay. Yeah,
Oh,
we'll be there to support and guide if we can, but respect and honor that they also have their own journey.
that's wonderful. That brings a nice symmetry to the interview as we're approaching time, because we
Yeah,
started recognizing that our parents had their own journey,
that's
and
so true. How
uh,
about that?
and now we're recognizing the children have their own journey. Um, and it's all different types of responsibilities, right? The parents is, us seeing them from the eyes of children, looking up, and the children, it's us seeing them from the eyes of parents looking down. And
Mm.
I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's all about love.
Yeah. Love, from love of the parents to love of the children, from love to love. um, So I have a boilerplate question that I asked everyone, and it's, if you were to capture the essence of leadership as a totem, an animal, or a plant, what would it be? And I don't know if you can remember the answer you gave or not. It's beautiful.
I talked about our plant, the aloes.
Yeah.
Is that how we pronounce it?
Yeah, you pick all the same words I struggle with, because of the French background. I don't think my wife can appreciate that, but I just, the aloe vera plant. Is that
Right,
the
right,
one, the
exactly. Yeah.
cactus that
Yes,
you can use for
exactly.
burns
That's exactly the one
or
I'm
eat?
talking. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many properties to this plant, and as I look at it, you know, it's very resilient. It's very healing. You cut one branch because you want to heal someone else, and it grows back. Uh, yeah, there's it's a serving plant. That's how I see it,
Yeah.
and it's a very beautiful correlation for me with leadership because I always say that leadership is about love, and that's what this plant seems to be thriving on and giving.
Yeah. Love and service. Love and
Yeah,
service. Beautiful. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about today, or any questions for me, before, actually, we have a little bit more time then before I pull a card for you. I like pulling cards for people.
oh, okay, nice.
But do you have anything else?
We traveled so much and we covered so many beautiful subjects. I can't think of anything else that I want to add. I'm sure we could go into another hour and talk about many more things. But we went to the we went where we needed to be, and that's perfect.
Wonderful, wonderful. So
Is there
now,
anything you'd like to say before you pick a card?
no, I'm going to say it now about card picking, but there's nothing else. I think we covered so much. I love hearing about your journey. I can relate to a lot of the uh, ups and downs that you've shared,
Yeah.
and lessons and insights, and really appreciate the energy, and your patience putting up with all those questions.
they were they were loving and good questions, so no patience involved. It was an open arm. Thank you.
Wonderful. So now I've been doing this with a few guests. It's oracle cards. Actually, I'll show for people watching. It's called the Earth Magic Deck.
Okay.
And it's something I picked up a few years ago. My wife taught me how to do this. My background is engineering. So, if you told me like 20 years ago I'd be pulling cards for people, I was like, you're crazy. That's like makes no sense. Like, why would I pull cards? Like, I've got all the
I'll build
answers.
software to pull cards virtually, maybe, but
Yeah, I mean, it's like this is the, I would have said, this is what the gypsies do. They look in their crystal balls and pull cards. And I was so clueless. But anyway, the name of the game is pulling cards. And so I'm going to ask you to think of a question in your mind about your journey that you'd like some guidance on. You don't have to share it. Actually, I prefer it if you don't. You could always share it afterward, because it's usually
yes.
a private matter. And then I'm gonna knock 3 times on the deck and ask the angels, the oracles, the powers that be, the gods we believe in, the God we believe in, to give you some answer to your question, for you, Maxime, for in the context of everything you've shared today, to help you in your journey. And for people who are listening, I'm shuffling the cards, and a whole bunch came out. It's a lot faster than usual. Hold on.
Interesting.
I'm gonna. That must have been a really good question, and the angels really wanted to help here.
Really quick to answer here.
Really quick to answer. Very efficient. I'm gonna pick the top 2 cards, and so I'll show them here. There's 2 of them. There's the Milky Way for perspective, and the rainbow for, what does it say on there? Blessings. And I love blessings. I love the rainbow, and those are great cards. So I'm going to read, give you the little bit of the read up. I'll start with the Milky Way here. Milky Way 101. Now, the beginning might sound not as positive as you would expect, but you have to wait until the end.
Okay.
You have lost your perspective. So it is time to step back, breathe, and allow yourself to detach in order to gather information from your senses and regain your perspective about the situation. Detachment does not mean that you no longer care. It simply indicates that you are looking at things from a different point of view. It is an outlook that is not clouded by emotions, judgment, or attachment to outcome, but instead maintains a non-reactive awareness of these things. The witness, that internal aspect of yourself that simply observes everything in your life, offers his or her eyes here. Through these lenses of pure awareness, you can examine all aspects of your experiences, physical, emotional, and mental, without denying anything. By doing so, you will come to understand a greater perspective than is typically justified by the ego, which allows you to see what is before you with clear vision and an open mind.
Perfect. Yeah.
This reminds me a little bit about what we were talking about with taking a step back and working with that gap and the more stoic approach. And then the other one is rainbow blessings. 119. I remember your question as well.
Yeah.
The storm has passed, and it is time to enjoy the refreshing beauty of this cycle, even though it has been difficult to appreciate any sense of purposefulness in what you have endured lately. You can now, as they say, count your blessings. Do not just look at the brighter side, adhering to some academic mantra that has no heart or depth, but do so slowly and with genuine gratitude that is expressed up close and personal. This ever-loving process of life itself is a blessing, an opportunity to exist as a human being on Earth. The planet is a beautiful garden, even if it does not always appear to be so. Sometimes it is only when you look back at a memory of an experience that you can truly see the blessings that you have come from them. Bless your difficult or painful experiences and let them go.
That's perfect. Yeah, there was no coincidence.
Well, there you have it. There's your.
Thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. It's always nice to work with the cards, and it never ceases to impress me.
Yeah, well, they're right on.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well,
sometimes asking the question is the answer lies in the question. With the card that you just picked, I was reminded that I was not asking the right question.
Well, we can. I love it. We can touch on that afterward. I'd love to hear more. Well, let's wrap this up now. Maxime, thank you so much for being here. Where can people find you and connect with you? What are the best places? And I'll put that in the show notes as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I'm only active on LinkedIn and YouTube with my channel. I post almost daily on LinkedIn, almost daily on YouTube, short videos. I have a website, stoa.coach, and that's about it. So you can find everything there. And on my LinkedIn profile at the top, tune in and up with me. There's that link brings you everywhere into my world. So there it is.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your beautiful questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, there was a good energy. We had a nice conversation, in depth, from soul to soul, heart to heart. These are the best, so I thank you.
Definitely. Thanks for listening. If you like the show, please subscribe to it on Apple Podcasts, follow me on Instagram at leadershipadelics, or stop by my website and say hi at fooyad.com. That's F-O-O-Y-A-D. There's a lot going on, and I'd love to hear from you all, the listeners that tune in every week. And if you have suggestions for future guests, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm there, and I'd love to get more guests on the show. Thank you. Have a great day.